Wow. Just wow. What a night. Honestly, AJ, you're number one, man. Next to Usyk, you're up there now. I think you've hushed all your haters. I think you've shut everybody up. And I can't be happier for Anthony Joshua. Honestly, he did what Tyson Fury should have done against Ngannou. And everyone knows it. The fact that Tyson Fury struggled with Ngannou and Otto Wallin back in the day, and AJ just walked through them like they were nothing, is really embarrassing for Tyson Fury. And he knows it. He must be absolutely seething right now. But let's not take anything away from Francis Ngannou here. He knew what he was getting in the ring with, and he gave Anthony Joshua a lot of respect. He didn't think that Anthony Joshua would be able to take any of his shots, but to be fair, Anthony Joshua never really gave him the chance to throw any of his heavy throws, any of his heavy punches. Anthony Joshua didn't really give him the chance to throw them. So that's one of those things that, unfortunately, as much as Anthony Joshua answered a lot of questions for us on Friday night, he didn't answer the question of whether or not he could take a punch from Francis Ngannou. And I think everyone would be in agreement that Anthony Joshua would struggle against the hardest punch that Francis Ngannou can throw. I mean, for God's sake, anyone would struggle against a Francis Ngannou heavy shot. So, it doesn't really matter though. Because at that point, if you don't give your opponent the opportunity to hit you hard, well, you haven't really got to worry about it. And the fascinating thing is when we did our video last week, I was placing my bets on Ngannou to win, at least within the first 5 rounds. I did say it would be fascinating to see how Ngannou reacts to a heavy shot from AJ, someone who is so accurate and so deadly that, well, we know the answer to that. Francis Ngannou gets knocked out. I mean, some people thought he was dead. It is crazy. It was a scary knockout. And for someone who has never been hurt like that before in their entire career in combat sports, that is a statement. And Anthony Joshua, you totally earned everyone's respect on Friday night. And even though my bets were on Ngannou, I secretly wanted AJ to win because, look, I'm a boxing fan. Yeah, an MMA fan, but I'm a boxing fan. And AJ's recovery from his losses to Alexander Usyk to now, his development, his boxing IQ, his technique, his game has developed so much beyond just being that so-called bodybuilder power puncher that Tyson Fury fans keep on banging on about. I always knew that Anthony Joshua is a true champion of boxing. I don't think... How can you argue that? The guy carries himself with so much respect, so much dignity, and he's humble as well. I mean, yeah, okay, he had a bit of a meltdown against Alexander Usyk, but he had no hate towards Usyk. I think his frustration was more with himself than anything else. But I really think that those losses have transformed AJ into this final form that we have right now. And I think a lot of boxing commentators are saying the same thing at the moment, that if this version of AJ got in the ring with Usyk, it could be a totally different fight to what we saw last year or the year before, whenever the AJ Alexander Usyk fight was, the second one round. Because honestly, right now, AJ looks unstoppable. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to seeing Tyson Fury and Usyk, because Fury, he's looking really good at the moment. You can tell he's lost loads of weight, and he's taking this fight incredibly seriously. And, well, we'll see if Tyson Fury can pull it off. That would be just crazy if Tyson Fury can pull it off against Usyk. I don't think he will. Usyk is just one of those guys where he's just ahead of the curve. He's literally perhaps one of the all-time greats of boxing. And let's not forget that this is in multiple weight classes as well for Alexander Usyk. And he's a smaller guy, and he's taking on guys that are much bigger, much taller, much heavier, much stronger than himself. And Alexander Usyk isn't the biggest power puncher in the world, but having said that, most of his wins have been by knockout as well, as far as I'm aware. So, of course, he hits heavy. So we'll see. You know what? This is a bit of a premature conclusion to the Tyson Fury-Alexander Usyk fight, but I actually think that Alexander Usyk is going to stop Fury. I genuinely do. Because as much as Fury moves really fast and he's quite unorthodox with the way he moves, Alexander Usyk is too accurate. He's able to work out his opponents incredibly quickly. But we'll go into more detail on that in another video in the near future. Once I've done a little bit more research and I've had another look at Alexander Usyk and his recent fights and Tyson Fury's recent fights, I don't know. We'll see. We'll recalculate when the time comes. But AJ, right now, fair play to you, mate. Congratulations. And you seriously have done what everyone expected you to do. And the funny thing is that boxing fans are all like, well, of course he did. Of course he beat Francis Ngannou. Of course he beat him. Of course he knocked him out. For God's sake, you're talking about the number 2, number 3 heavyweight boxer in the world right now against someone who is a novice. Well, that's the issue, is that Ngannou is a wild card. And considering his performance against someone who regards himself as the number 1 boxer in the world right now, Tyson Fury, he made him look like an absolute fool. And because all of us are kind of like, well, yeah, Tyson Fury's record is really impressive on paper. Arguably, his opponents haven't been quite on par as someone like Alexander Usyk or AJ. His boxing record is still pretty good. And so we kind of all took his word for it, that he was one of the best. And he keeps on saying the best fighter in his generation. Well, Anthony Joshua has pretty much absolutely destroyed that impression. Any boxing fan right now would be thinking to themselves, yep, AJ did the job, but what the hell was Tyson Fury doing against this novice? And it does show the difference between these elite MMA athletes and these elite boxers. These boxers are on another level. I know it might sound crazy, but if Anthony Joshua decided to get in a cage with Francis Ngannou after that performance, honestly, I think he'd still give Ngannou some trouble, because let's not forget, Ngannou is a striker. First and foremost, he's a striker. So is AJ. So I actually don't think that in an MMA environment that the result would have been too different, to be honest with you. But of course, if it ever got to the ground, then that's where Ngannou would certainly have an advantage over AJ, because, Ngannou, over the last 10 years or so, that's what he's been working on. Yeah, he's a striker, but in MMA, you've got to have a really good ground game. You've got to have a really good stand-up game. It's the combination. But in boxing, it's funny, isn't it? You've got two fists, and you think that 2 punches at this level would be even, or as close to even as you can get. They're both really strong guys, both heavy hitters, both power punchers. But no, the difference is absolutely huge. And looking over the fight again, the way how AJ was setting traps, the way how he was giving Ngannou kind of a false sense of security was just masterful. And even though arguably Ngannou got the better of AJ in some of those short exchanges, AJ doesn't really throw combinations like he used to. He doesn't go in all guns blazing anymore like he used to. He throws more pot shots, and he really times his punches these days. And when he sees opportunities, he doesn't overextend himself like he used to, like he did against Andy Ruiz. He overextended himself, and that's how he ended up getting knocked out in the end. And so he's really learned from these experiences. And it's made AJ this whole new fighter now, in my opinion. Just a total legend and an elite level boxer. And you could pit him against anyone. Even Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali. You could put him up against any of those guys and he would have a pretty good standing chance of at least holding his own, let alone maybe even beating them. You never know. I mean, I know comparing boxers from back in the day, you know, George Foreman, Joe Frazier, or whatever, Rocky Marciano, whatever the case might be. I know it's a bit cliche to bring up these names in a modern context, but at the same time, you can't help yourself, can you? When you see a legend in the making in Anthony Joshua, despite the fact that he hasn't got any belts anymore, he clearly still has that ability, that skill, that, I mean, I was going to say strength of will, but that still remains to be seen. If he gets hit hard by someone, can AJ stand up to him? Can he recover? Can he bring it back around like he did against Klitschko? Well, I suppose that remains to be seen. But right now, honestly, fair play to both Francis Ngannou and AJ. You guys put on one hell of a show, and I'm sorry that this is the way it went down for Ngannou, but from AJ's perspective, this was the only way it could go. And the fact that I didn't think AJ was going to get into a firefight with Ngannou, and he basically, that's exactly what he did. He stuck it on Ngannou immediately, he put the pressure on straight away, didn't give Ngannou a chance to react. AJ was too fast, he was too accurate, he totally outsmarted Ngannou. That's the thing. I made a comment in our previous video that Ngannou is an intelligent guy. But unfortunately, AJ just has the tools. He just has better tools at his disposal than Ngannou did. AJ was one step ahead the whole time. He was ducking. He was getting his head tucked under his shoulder every time whenever he would step through to avoid that hook. It was just masterful and wonderful to see from AJ. Just a masterclass performance against a guy that arguably was more intimidating and bigger than AJ. It doesn't matter. It's just world-class, elite-level boxing against, admittedly, an elite-level MMA athlete, but an amateur boxer in Francis Ngannou. And now that Ngannou knows what these elite level guys are capable of, it remains to be seen if he actually stays in boxing or not. I don't think he'll come back to boxing again, or if he does, it will be maybe later on in his career, maybe next year, the year after, something like that. But I don't think he's going to be stepping into the ring with the likes of AJ or Tyson Fury or even Parker or Zhang. He probably won't even step into the ring with those guys. It'll probably be more like Dillian White, those kinds of fighters, maybe even Chisora. But honestly, I'd actually have my bets on Chisora right now if it was Chisora and Ngannou after that performance. But if he does get into the ring again in the future, I hope he does, because he clearly has potential to do well in the sport. And if he just works a little bit longer on his boxing, I'm sure he could really do well. But he's limited in the amount of time he's got left. He's 37 years old. By the time he gets into the boxing ring again, or by the time he actually thinks about boxing again, who knows? I mean, he might be close to 40 by that point, because we know he's contracted to get into MMA again. So, well, we'll see. But I hope Ngannou does get back into boxing again, because he is still a wild card as far as I'm concerned. No, maybe not on the level of AJ or Alexander Usyk, or maybe even on Tyson Fury's level if Tyson Fury takes him seriously. But it's one of those things where I just hope that Francis Ngannou takes this and gets stronger as a result. Just like AJ had to. AJ had to take all this stuff on the chin, had to take that criticism. And I'm not criticizing Ngannou, honestly. It is what it is. Like AJ said, he did it. He had a job to do and he did it. Francis Ngannou, unfortunately, was standing in his way. And I think that's all that really matters, is who's in front of you. And if you win, well, it's on to the next one, isn't it? And that's pretty much it. And it'll be the same for Francis Ngannou as well, right? He'll be absolutely fine after this, and if anything, he'll become a much better, a much stronger fighter from now on, and he'll go through the same rebuilding process that AJ had to, where, you know, there are guys out there like AJ within MMA as well that could knock him out in future. So hopefully it'll make him a little bit more weary. And despite the fact that Ngannou's always had respect for his opponents, now that he's had that experience and he knows what it's like, that he'll know his limits a lot better now than he used to. So we'll see. I wish Francis Ngannou all the best. He's got into the sport, earned a ton of money. Fair play to him, honestly. He totally captivated the world with his ability. And I know that some people call it a hype train and things, but honestly, Ngannou is the real deal. You watch him in MMA, he is the real deal. Seriously, he's like a train, an unstoppable train. He's just a tank, honestly. But AJ, I mean, what's a tank's nemesis? I don't know, a bazooka, a javelin, whatever they're using in Ukraine right now against the Russian tanks. You know what I mean? He has the tools to break him down. Absolutely fantastic. And what a night of boxing. It was absolutely brilliant from start to finish. Parker and Zhang, they put on a good show as well. Fair play to Parker. Considering Zhang really put it on him, he managed to, in my opinion, he did manage to outpoint Zhang, and even though he got knocked down twice, again, just incredible. But the fact that he stuck it out and he didn't fall into his shell like he usually does, or like he has done in the past when he's been hit hard by someone. He didn't hide. He stood up, he kept going, and he managed to snag the win. So fair play to Parker. Honestly, a fantastic day of boxing, and I'd heavily recommend that you guys check out the highlights of that day. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, that cherry on top, that was that AJ knockout, honestly. And Ngannou, he'll be happy for AJ as well, honestly. As much as Ngannou might be disappointed with himself, he's like, fair play, mate. You are the real deal. And I knew it from the beginning. I knew it from the start. AJ is the real deal. He always has been. But for some reason, no one's ever believed him. And like AJ has said, people underestimate him. And they really do. They absolutely do. So fair play to AJ. You've silenced all your critics, and you bask in the glory that you've earned yourself, my friend. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for watching this one. Go ahead, leave that like, hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.